Hello guys and welcome to Homemaking and Motherhood Unscripted. You also want to jump in? Wow. Seriously? Okay. Okay. Okay, come say hi. Wow. Say hi. Okay, done. Alright, let's start the intro again. Hi guys, my name is Leila, but you can call me Mrs. Chokes. Welcome to Home Unscripted, where I share with you tips, tricks, experiences, everything that concerns homemaking and motherhood. What I have gone through, what I'm learning, the joys, the challenges, everything. We do not sugarcoat or filter anything. This is a raw and unfiltered segment for moms, for homemakers. Even if you're not a mom and you're a homemaker, or you just enjoy this type of content, tune in. Let's talk about. So let's get right into it. So today, this segment is proudly sponsored by Zimsec. It's proudly sponsored by Zimsec. So as you all know, I'm a mom. Well, if you don't know, I'm a mom to 3 children. My oldest is in grade 5. So they are now starting what they term as projects at school. So they have a Shona project. Last week, I think 2 weeks ago, a teacher sent some topics for Shona so that the kids can choose which topic they would like to write as their project. This is sort of like dissertation, but Zimsec, primary level dissertation, sort of. So on the topics, there were like four or five Shona topics that were there, and she chose one. The one that she chose was kuderera kwehunhu netsika mazuvano. It was, let me read it. The topic is kuderera kwehunhu netsika dzechishona mumazuva ano. So whilst we were researching on the topic, I told you to send messages to your grandparents to ask about the differences in how kids nowadays are behaving or misbehaving, comparing to how kids in their days, how they were behaving, how they were raised, and tsika nehunhu dzavaita growing up, and if there is a difference now netsika nehunhu dzakuitwa nevana vemazuva ano, right? So it got me thinking, raising our children as a society, how we are raising our children is also as a family, compared to how we were raised, compared to how my parents were raised, and how they view makudziro achiita vana vemazuva ano, and comparing to how ivo makudziro avakaita avakatiita. And I was just thinking to myself, but wow, there's really, well, personally, I think there are some stuff that I've really adopted that I would really try to impose on my children, that I really try to impose. But then that's were like, okay. And there were some things that they mentioned that I was like, why am I not doing this? Why am I relaxing on this tika, on this one? So we're gonna dive into that, and I'll just share with you some of the things that they mentioned and some of the things that we are doing in terms of raising our kids, so that we maintain tsika nehunhu dzechishona muvana vedu. So one of the things that my dad mentioned when Michaela asked him about tsika nehunhu dzaitwa kudhara, one of the things that he mentioned was kudhara vana vekwabamneni nevana vekwabamukuru, like papa sina kunti avanoita zvavo vega, avanoita zvavo vega vese, they would be regarded as just kids. There was no cousin relationships. It was just brother and sisters, right? Unlike nowadays, when we talk about family, it's just the nuclear family, father, mother, and their kids. Then that is that. Whereas kudara, extended family was regarded as family. Yakatokoshawo just as much as nuclear family, right? Which is something that we also do. That is something that I also tell my children to uphold in this family. My vana vebrother ya baba Michaela, I regard them as my kids, and their parents also regard my kids as their kids. So, wow, dramatic much, right? So I think it's very important because vana vanokura vaine rudo, vachidanana, vana vekwabamnini, vana vekwabamkuru. It brings unity in the family structure. Hakuna it brings unity in the family, because like guys, it still takes a village to raise a child. So this is the village. The first village that the kids have is the nuclear family. Then we go to the extended family before we can even go to the neighbors and but I do understand people who just do their own thing with their children as well, because sometimes these extended family members can be so toxic, and people vanopedzisira vaita sei munhu angoita zvake zvake nefamily yake because some family members are toxic. And I thank God for our families, both my husband's side and my side, that we are able to get together and we are able to have a relationship where my husband's brother's children can come into our house and they play with my kids, they get along, and where I can get along with my bam ninis and my ninis, right? And I also thank God that even at my side, my sister's kids, they do get along with my children, and they just regard each other as brothers and sisters. So that's something that I'm upholding even now, and that I pray that my children will continue to uphold, God willing, that there's no toxic family members, and whatever toxicity we will try to bring it to the feet of Jesus, because right? So the second thing was the second thing is kuombera vachitambidzwa chinhu and saying pamsoroi before they eat or when they are passing, right? And I am guilty of not teaching my kids kuti vati pamsoroi. Kuombera, here and there I reprimand them and tell them you are supposed to kuombera, but then I forget. And the thing is English ndo iri kukanganisa vana. Well, my kids, sorry papa, my kids, English ndo iri kukanganisa, because when they say thank you, like if I hand them something and they say thank you, then apana pavachaombera, they've already said thank you, because kuombera taikutora as a way of saying maita basa, but then growing up unowombera uchiti maita basa, but now kids just say thank you, they don't clap their hands, right? I am so guilty of not teaching my kids this, and something that I was thinking, but this is actually hunhu wakanaka to teach my children, so that varambe vakabatirira patsika iyoyo yekuombera or saying pamsoroi. When my kids are eating, they get their plate from the kitchen, they sit on the table, they say their prayers, they eat. When they're done, they say thank you for the food, and that is it. But when we're growing up, you take your plate, before you even take your plate, you say pamsoroi, wotora chikafu chako, woenda unogara pasi, you say your prayer. Before you eat first, you say futi pamsoroi, wapedza kudya, you say maita basa. But now the process that we do, that I mentioned earlier, that's how we just normally do things. We have in some way cancelled the pamsoroi and maita basa and the kuombera ritual in this house, and I think I don't know what you guys think. Does thank you, please and thank you, can please and thank you replace pamsoroi and maita basa? Can it? I don't know, but it's something that I think I'm gonna start teaching my kids to say pamsoroi before they eat, because when they just say a prayer and start eating, it just seems like it's just off. It just seems off, like Havana who appreciate the food that they have been given, right? But then they will say thank you after. So saying I'm sorry before acknowledges the person who has cooked, and it's like asking permission to eat. Also mentioned kufugama when you're greeting vanhu vakuru, kufugama kana munhu mukuru achitaura newe hautaurwe newe wakamira, and all of that. And you guys, do you know what, growing up, like isusu kwandakakura, I come from Masvingo, and if you know Masvingo people, they are so serious about tsika nehunhu. Growing up, I knew kuti zvone gogo vakauya, like gogo vakauya kana kuti sekuru vakauya kana kuti pakauya vamwe vanhu taisatombogezesa, yet they would try kuti kana achigezesa like my dad maoko tongotyora muzura mbichana, then we wash his hands, takangopfugemira mbichana usina kunyatsokuguma pafloor. And kana kuti kuriyo unenge wakutuma kuti vana tudiki kuti mimi endai munogezesa dad maoko, iwo unopfugama, iwo ungozoendesa wosadza woisa patable, right? But would know kana gogo vauya sekuru vauya kufugama pasi, and zvaindibowa sei and I'll be like, I'll be so irritated. But now with my children, I try to teach them to greet vanhu vakafugama, vanhu vakuru, kuti makadii, munoti makadii, vanhu makaita sei, makafugama, and all of that stuff. But then the thing that I noticed that is becoming hard for me to really enforce this ritual of greeting vanagogo vakafugama, or even saying pamsoroi, or all of that stuff, is also the parents that raised me. They no longer care. Like when they were raising me, it was a must, that's what we have to do. But now when it comes to them relating to my children, they have sort of relaxed themselves. They do not care. When they see my children run to their sekuru, they run to their sekuru or to their grandma, and they say, hello gogo, hello sekuru, how are you? How are you, Michaela? How are you, Eliana? How's school? And that is it. But isusu pataikura, we know tikaona gogo, we just give you a hug. Todzoka mashure ofugama, what makadi gogo chi en womoresa gogo makadi gogo kulise kumusha chi wakafugama over wasogara pasi. But now it's different from how they are raising their grandkids. So for me to enforce all of that, when I try to enforce all of that now to my kids and say this is how you have to greet your grandparents, when the grandparents are like, hi, how are you doing there, you understand, my grandparents actually are top forefront of not teaching them, of which even to do this to your grandma. It's just so difficult to parent in this day and age, where the grandparents have now relaxed a bit. Havachanyanye kuinforsa zvavakatikudza tiri vachiita, asizvo zvavakukudza vazukuru vavo vachiita. Unlike our grandparents, like my grandparents will be like looking at you like, hauna kufugama, mwana haasi kufugama uyu, hamusi kudzidziswa hunhu, hamusi kudzidziswa tsika, and all of that stuff. Not also like my dad calls my children the privileged ones. Vane ma-rights, vanozvinzi havasiyei ava, vane ma-rights, vane ma-privileges, havangambozvizive. And I'm like, dude, for real? Like if it were us, if it were me and my sisters, I know would have been reprimanded. What do you mean? But now when it comes to their grandkids, so it becomes very weird for me to enforce some of the tsikanehunu that they were mentioning, because we have really adopted this English sort of culture of we just do things, we just say please, we say thank you, we say how are you doing, instead of makadi, instead of pamsore, instead of maitabasa, and all of that stuff, right? So it got me thinking, kuti tukurasa here hunhu wedu hwechishona, tichitora hunhu hwechirungu, if I may say, tikutora zvinhu zvechirungu toita zvechirungu, because they still say thank you is my chabasa, they still say please, they are still being polite. They are still asking people how they are greeting, but in their greeting they are not greeting in Shona or greeting vakafugama, because I've never seen someone anoti how are you maka akafugama. People would just say how are you, even akakamira how are you gogo, how are you sekuru, all that stuff. Unlike when we were greeting our parents or when we were greeting our grandparents, we would literally sit in the corner, kneel in the corner and say makali. So kumoresa vanhu vari kumoresa ndotsika ka yekumoresa, you have to greet your elders. They are doing that, but they are doing that in English. So tarasa here hunhu tika adopta hunhu hwechirungu. I don't know, you guys, what do you think? Then the point that was raised is giving up your seat when you are maybe in a church setting or a function or in a bus, right? Say I'm traveling with Michaela and there's an elder person who's standing. Then Michaela has to give up her seat for that elder person to sit down, and then she stands, which I thank God with now. Actually, this is standing passengers, because it really used to irritate me. I remember when I was like 17 years old, I went to Kumusha. So on my way back to Kumusha, I was coming to Harare with my tete's child, who's my tete's child is my child. The anonditi my nini, right? So I think she was about 4 years, 5 years thereabout, and I paid for a ticket. And when I paid for a ticket, for her to sit on the seat, and they literally charged me a full ticket. But then the conductor, when he was now picking people in the bus, I just saw my passenger standing. There was an elderly man who was standing in the passage, right? Bus, and he instructed me to carry the child that I had paid for her seat, and that the man should come and sit. And I was like, Sakana baba vakuya kuzogara. That means you have to give him back his money, because you can't charge him for his ticket, and you're also charging mwana tickets, yet mwana ndichamisa pamakumbo, and all that stuff. He was trying to be sneaky about it, though I didn't get my money, because these conductors sometimes it's just easy to not fight with them. So thank God now there are no more akusisina vanhu vanoita mabhases akawanda anoita standing passengers because of safety and all of that stuff. And so yeah, I think it's a really good thing for vana kusumukira vanhu vakuru, especially in church, on gatherings, functions, etc. You just give up your seat for an elder person, because it's regarded to, if you are young, you are more stronger, you have more endurance, unlike mono akura, back pains, joint pains, all of that stuff. I'm now experiencing it, like natosvika paage kusumukirwa nevana, you guys. So yeah, I think that is really important to continue teaching our kids to show respect in that regard. Yekusumukira vanhu vakuru, right? That was raised is kudara people in a community had a right to reprimand your child if they are misbehaving, to even beat, to the extent of even beating your child if they're misbehaving. And like nowadays, when people are like, no, you cannot just beat my child. If my child misbehaves, you tell me, I will deal with my child. Personally, I think it's 50-50. I'm okay with my neighbors vachitsura mwana wangu, even kumurova, if their beating is done, if they go in hard as much as I do, not to extend kumurova to an extent that I would never do, right? they have to do it vachiziva kuti at the end of the day it's my child, right? I do not have a problem with my neighbor vachitsura mwana vachirova mwana, because I do not want to raise kids who are entitled, who just think kuti only my mom can beat me, only my mom can do whatever, and they do not listen to anybody else. God forbid my kids will not take instruction. God forbid my kids will not take instruction from an elder person vachiti because you're not my mom or because you're not my dad. No, I do not accept that. My neighbors, they do have a right kudzora mwana wangu, kumutsura, and to tell me kana vatomudhonza kwaangari achita zvisina nebasa, they have to do that. I do not want my neighbors to just look at my child going haywire and be like, mai vake havadi kuti arohwe, mai vake havadi kuti atsurwe, baba vake havadi kuti no. As a community, yeah, we have a right yekudzora nekutsura vana vari mucommunity, and it's okay, because it literally takes a village to raise a child, and this is the village that we have. Our neighbors are parts of that village, right? So they were saying like vana vemazuva vabereki vemazuva ano actually ndo vari kukanganisa vana kuti vana havachatsurike, because the parents are like, my kids are my kids, right? That's pretty much on the hunhu side. Then on the tsika side, my dad pretty much covered a lot on tsika. He mentioned about nimbe, something to do with how people, if there's a poor family who cannot afford kurima munda wavo, then the community would come together and bring their ox so that they help kurima munda we that poor family, and people would brew beer for the community, and the guys will be working, and I think that's nimbe. Then there's also kugarira, kutema ugariri. He also mentioned about kurova makuva, I think. Then he also mentioned about kuzvarira, which this kuzvarira concept, Michaela was like, no, we're not doing that. So I think some of the practices, the tika, and no, no, I think we are okay leaving them in the past and not continuing, especially kuzvarira, like, what do you mean I have to mwana anozokura chinzi uri kuroorwa kumhuri yekaningi because they helped us when we were poor, when we couldn't afford food. Like, can we just help each other without having to bear a child for that family? And funny thing is, some of these practices are actually in the Bible. Like the other one where you mentioned kuti, if I die, God forbid, then my sister has to come in and be the mom and wife to my husband. I'm like, no. No. It reminded me of the story in the Bible when one of Judah's sons died, and his younger son was to take his brother's wife, and bear children with him. And then the brother did not. He was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And he literally poured his seed on the ground, and God was like, so yeah. Just funny how when people say, hey, Christianity and African, what, and I'm like, you guys, some people, they really were living according to the Bible. The things in the Bible, that's how they were living. It's just some people thought they were clever and distorted the information in the Bible to try to manipulate the situation and people. I am digressing. But anyway, that is it for today's video, you guys. Share in the link below what are some of the things tsika nehunhu dzaraswa nevana vemazuva ano, or tsika nehunhu dzatwa kudhara dzamuri kudzidzisa your kids, your nephews and your nieces. Yeah, I would like to hear from you guys. Let's continue the chat in the comment section. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye for now.